I did want to follow up on something that we discussed a couple episodes back, right? So part of it also involves Matt Walsh, one of the participants in that podcast, The Damned, that we just watched. And if people will remember, he had there was this video on the Daily Wire where Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro were getting into it about aliens, and Shapiro is a skeptic, but Walsh is a believer, and overall thought that just by virtue of not thinking that, Shapiro kind of came out of the exchange looking better. But if people will remember, I want to do a correction here, sake of journalistic integrity. People remember when we watched that video, there was one particular point that Shapiro made that we all found very uncompelling. And I will say he made it in the dumbest possible way. But I think there might be more here than I was quite giving him credit for. So if you have if we look at the Ben Shapiro alien clip,
these creatures apparently flew millions of light years to get to planet Earth, where they proceeded to crash their extraordinarily high-tech spacecraft into like a swamp and die. And this seems like wild incompetence. Are these aliens just like extremely good at making their vehicles, but very, very bad at driving them? Are they female aliens? Like, how do we? What's happening here?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Like that's such a forced racist dad joke that someone of his generation wouldn't think to tell. Like those jokes weren't funny in the mid '80s when they were supposed
I was gonna say, do you think Jay Leno would make that joke? I think that joke is too hacked for Jay Leno.
Andrew Dice Clay wouldn't have made that joke.
And it's not just Leno wouldn't have made that joke, like later, right? Because he'd get in trouble or whatever. It's that like 1995, Jay Leno wouldn't have made that joke because he would have thought it was too hacky.
1985, Jay Leno wouldn't have made that joke. Like that is some like, take my wife, please. Oh, that's
Yeah. Now again, he's making the point in the dumbest possible way, and he's sort of being gratuitously offensive about how he makes it. I will say I was watching this video from Mick West yesterday that was related to what I just wrote about for the Substack, where I think he actually does make a much better version of this argument, which basically goes something like this: if there are aliens crashing on Earth as often as they're supposed to, like once every few years, then something's really confusing about that, because just in the United States, there are about 45,000 airplane flights a day, and like essentially none of them crash. Like there are plane crashes about as often as there's supposed to be UFO crashes. So,
yeah, I don't that.
This is a much more technologically advanced civilization. I would think that they would be better at, they would be better at building vehicles that had detection systems and stuff to make it harder for them to crash. They would go through this obstacle course. Like remember the first Star Wars movie when Han Solo explains that when you go into hyperspace, you have to make sure you plot.
I would assume it's more like The Last Starfighter, and it's like the training scene in The Last Starfighter.
Okay. To be fair, I'll be the Matt Walsh of this show, only on the topic of aliens. Nothing else. But
I didn't see where this goes.
Yeah,
no, but
self-described Matt Walsh of this show. All right, let's go.
There's two kind of genres, right, of the UFO. One is like they crashed or I got picked up by them, right, and the other is like I'm like an Air Force pilot who saw something unexplained lights in the distance, and I took video of it, and I can't explain it, right? So I thought that the crashing wasn't the only type of UFO sightings that are talked about.
No, it's certainly not. It's a big one, and it's one that came up a lot actually recently because of something that's sort of a combination of those two genres. There's this guy
Okay.
David Grush, you know him? He's a career Air Force officer who ended up sort of climbing up into the intelligence community essentially for the Air Force. He seems to have had this very distinguished career, spent time in Afghanistan and other places he can't disclose, and was eventually for like the Geospatial Agency or something. It's like one of these weird bureaucratic agencies that we don't think about that much. He co-led their UAP task force. UAP means the same thing as UFO. It's unidentified aerial phenomenon. They just switch it from UFO, means exactly the same thing as unidentified flying object, but it doesn't sound as embarrassing to say. So they use that now in all these bureaucratic organizations. And he claims he ran into all this information that convinced him that there are several crashed alien ships that are in possession of the U.S. government. And he's gone through like the official procedure to get whistleblower protection so he could talk to Congress. And I watched, so this is the Breaking Points UFO video we've got. So I watched the two hosts of the show, Crystal Ball and Saagar and Enjeti, have a argument about this guy, and let's just watch that.
What we have seen is the Pentagon is continuing basically to call him a straight up liar. The Pentagon and the UAP task force, Susan Go, who's one of the spokespeople over there, she came out and she was just like, yeah, this is totally untrue. There's no existence of any of these programs. United States Air Force came out with a statement just being like, yeah, look, ever since Project Blue Book and all of that closed the door, there's no reason that we should even be looking into this. I mean, the cover up is happening in plain sight. The only hope we have are these congressional representatives and whether they're actually going to get to the bottom of it. But I mean, really what we're looking at here is a vast conspiracy of people who have been covering this up now for decades, special access programs, or Grush is straight up psychotic. All these other people that have come forward to Michael Schellenberger and all of that, look, yeah, maybe they're just stone cold crazy. It's very possible. It's certainly possible, but watch the interview. Maybe. Look, I've seen hucksters out there before, but this many people, this level of seriousness, the testimony to his character and all of that, the fact that he was vetted by Jeremy Corbell, by Leslie Keane, by Ralph Blumen, these are all people who've met a lot of crazy people out there, before, and they don't just bring these things forward without any recourse. I believe him. I believe him whenever he talks.
So what do you say to, like in Vanity Fair, they were like, okay, you have a track record of a credible person, you have other people who are corroborating your claims, but where's the evidence? Where's the photo? Where's the material? Right. Where's the something? Because I do think it's reasonable for people to say, like, okay, this is an unbelievable, like it's a literally unbelievable claim. And so in order for us to take this seriously, you're gonna have to give us a little something more than just some chitty chat. Well,
guess what? It's classified. I don't think everybody keeps forgetting that. He has to come forward through the official whistleblower process. He can't just leak classified information. They're gonna lock him up. They're gonna throw him in jail.
Well, I guess we know who the Matt Walsh is in that show.
Okay, I'll just, next time I say that aliens exist, I'll just say I'm that guy. I don't always agree with him, but he's got to be better than Matt Walsh.
I think that Saagar is definitely better than Matt Walsh.
He's at least a better human.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know him particularly. I mean, the other person on the screen is Crystal Ball, friend of mine, friend of the show. The Saagar, I've shared YouTube screens with a few times. I met him briefly at Crystal's wedding. I don't really know him, but like I think like just about anybody, I think the default should be that we assume that they're much better than Matt Walsh. But I do tend to think that he's wrong about this, and that that Crystal is making a good point. Because basically the good point she's making, this is what the Substack from yesterday was about. It's called David Hume versus the UFO whistleblower, and and the point I was making there is that essentially what Crystal's saying there is like, look, okay, maybe this guy is really trustworthy, but it's a little much, even with the, no, I'm sorry, it's classified, I don't want to get thrown to jail. It's a little much to accept that there are several crashed alien spaceships in the custody of the U.S. government, and he says a bunch of other stuff too. It gets much more out there than that. It's a little much to accept that on the basis of, take my word for it. It's like, I promise I'm not lying to you. Like, it essentially, if you go back and read David Hume's argument in the Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding about miracles, essentially his point there is, okay, sure, we believe things all the time on the basis of testimony. Somebody saw it and they tell us. And oftentimes that's a reasonable thing to do. But when somebody is saying that there was like a violation of the laws of physics, like aliens traveled faster than the speed of light and, crashed into the swamp, and then what you have to weigh is, okay, how unlikely do you think it is that somebody who seems real trustworthy would say something that was wrong, versus how unlikely is it that we're wrong about the laws of physics? And it kind of seems like, the second one's going to be more unlikely.
I have a third option.
Okay, what was that?
I have a third option. I was watching a video earlier asking if aliens are demons. And apparently people who see UFOs are involved in the occult, which makes perfect sense because look at the X-Files. So maybe it's just demons.
I don't care to know the answer. It has never worked out well for the person that has found out the answer. I've watched enough movies that have taken place in the 80s where finding out and investigating has not ended up well. So I will blissfully stay in the dark and stay alive.
Flight of the Navigator is my counterpoint.
I'm gonna give you my
That's
last take on this. It's not exactly about whether aliens have visited us or not. But one of my closest friends is a left-wing guy, but since he's a straight male, he is a Joe Rogan fan, and he sent me like 6 links. He's like, just watch them and you're gonna believe that UFOs are out there. And I was like, all right. And I haven't watched them yet, so I was like, I'll get to that later. But I was thinking about
we'll revisit this next week.
Yeah,
once you've watched.
Yeah. But the majority of Joe Rogan fans, which is the most popular podcast in the world, I think, right? Probably believe that aliens have already visited us. So in terms of like what I don't know how to poll. I mean, maybe there's some Gallup polling on like how many people believe that aliens have visited us now versus like different times in history. But we're in an era, we're talking about like different people talk about like the breakdown of believing in experts, right, or believing in conspiracy theories. We're in an era where like the normal opinion on this, at least amongst straight men, is going to be that aliens have visited us, whether whatever us eggheads think or whatever David Hume thinks, which is I think it's just an interesting reality to contend with, that this is what the majority of people or not, maybe not the majority, but more and more people are believing this, and that's the world that we live in. You know what I mean? And that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd like to, right? As Fox Mulder would say, right? I'd want to believe. That'd be awesome. I'd love to be wrong about this, but yeah, I think the Humean point seems pretty convincing to me. I also think, like, just on a common sense level, you say, okay, the idea that the U.S. government and all the other governments that would have to be in on it, right, for this to work, would want to cover this up, never mind be successful in doing so, which they're usually not great at keeping secrets for long periods of time, but even they would want to in the first place. Like the sort of classic motivation in all those movies Jason is talking about and in the X-Files and all that is, there would be mass panic if people found out. We can't have that. To which I would say, I don't know, man, when has the military industrial complex ever disliked mass panic?
I just don't want to have Robert Englund in V. I don't know if you remember the scene where Diana eats was it the rat?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
hamster. It's like
The hamster or something. Yeah. Like someone on Twitter posted the V action figures, and they had removable faces to show their lizard face. And 8-year-old me saw that. I was like, that's so cool. And then now I'm on this show, and 45-year-old me is like, I don't want to meet that in real life.
You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive postgames on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.